Welcome back to another sci-fi episode where psychology and finances collide. We'll continue to examine how we think, feel, and behave with money as it pertains to the Happy Money book, written by Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton. Their subtitle is The Science of Happier Spending. And I love what one of the reviewers stated about this book. If your money isn't making you happy, then you're just spending it wrong. What a great way to look at your money, right? So you'll have seen different episodes within this podcast about how money cannot buy happiness. And of itself, it's true. Money does not buy you happiness. It's not the thing that buys happiness. It's how you spend your money. It's how you consume rather than how you try to pressure yourself or continue to climb that ladder to make more money. It's using the resources that you have more wisely to create a stronger sense of subjective well-being. And that's all we're discussing when we're discussing this book, when we're discussing the financial symposium, which in the financial symposium that we did here at Redstone Arsenal on the 25th of March, 2025, I created the entire class on this book. And you've already listened to the author's first couple of paragraphs within the book, one on buying experiences, making it a treat, and buying time, paying now, consuming later. We're going to spend more time on that pay now, consume later concept. But I'm going to take a pause here and just note some of the feedback from the financial symposium, because now that you've listened to these first two episodes on this Happy Money book review, I thought this would be a great time to bring in the barriers that people consistently cite in these classes that I offer, these symposiums that I offer year after year. And the actual title of the symposium this year was called Building Your Financial Ecosystem, the Science of Spending, Saving, and Giving. So I asked the question in the survey, what are your perceived barriers when it comes to optimizing your financial ecosystem? And so here are the things, and I went through, I had 80 responses from the 420 that actually attended. And here are some of the barriers that I highlighted that I consistently get. Time. Okay, well, we talked a lot about time, but this respondent is saying, you know what a barrier for me is I just don't have the time to do this. And I saw this in several other entries, dedicating time to it. That was another one. Let's see, there was another one on the back here of, or even tied to time, lack of expertise. I don't even know where to start, let alone how much time do I need to invest in this? And someone even used the term overwhelming. This is overwhelming for me. Another person stated only one income. And it's always interesting when folks cite this as a barrier, because if anything, if you are operating and surviving off of one income, boy, what kind of a joy would it be if your spouse ever acquired a second income? You could continue to live off the one income and then buy experiences and buy time and other things with the other income, and also live in such a way to where if one of you lost your job, it wouldn't be completely stressful. So there are advantages of only having one income as well. It can teach you how to live in such a way to where you don't need that additional income. But if it does happen, boy, what a treat when that does occur. Another respondent stated FOBO, fear of better offer, for those that are not familiar with that acronym. He says, FOBO, and how I've been groomed as a kid in this consumption culture, and also the different views on money that myself and my wife share. I highlighted this one because it speaks about financial socialization, how I was groomed as a kid, how I learned to spend money as a kid. And what money did not provide me as a kid, what money is not providing me now, what this culture has told me that I must do to be happy, but it is incorrect and I want to break up with this culture kind of attitude. And also, this also brings in the different views that spouses often share about money. That's a delicate topic, but for those listening, in the sci-fi lineup for virtual classes this year, there will be a class in October 2025 on financial intimacy. And so we definitely understand how difficult it is for spouses to get on the same page with money. So another one here, just getting motivated to get started. So motivation is one I constantly see as a barrier. Fear of not having enough information to make the perfect decision for my future. So let's dissect that word perfect. We are not looking for perfection. We're just looking for a try. We're just looking for you to do something different. And remember, it only takes one small difference to make a big change. And here's the other one that I was looking for, dedicating time to it. So this one I find extremely interesting. Cost and lack of knowledge. I see this one on so many of the surveys after I've completed a class. So here's something I want you to think about, and this is what the authors of Happy Money are trying to get you to think about as well. They're trying to get you to think beyond your income. They're trying to get you to think beyond your experience, your knowledge of money, or how much it might even cost for you to pay a professional. They're trying to get you in the habit of thinking of what you could do differently with the resources that you currently have. So if I could, I want to challenge the audience. There are so many people that I see in the financial counseling session who are paying upwards of $200 a month for yard service. So we're paying a professional to tend our yard, but we balk at paying a professional to look at our finances. $200 a month times 12 months. Anybody want to take a stab at the math? That's a lot of cash. And you wouldn't even pay half of that to speak to a certified financial planner, a fiduciary certified financial planner, just to go over some things with you. And by the way, my services are free if you're here at Redstone Arsenal and you fit the eligibility to come in. My services are free. So we have to think beyond cost and start moving towards what am I willing to sacrifice temporarily. Maybe I cut my own grass this month so that I can go and see a financial professional. So here's another one that's going to fit this episode so well. Okay, this is too hard. I need a change of mindset, especially telling myself or my kid no. Wow, I just want to give this person a gold star. And lastly, here's what I'm going to talk about in today's episode as well. And this barrier goes right with it. This respondent said one of their barriers was that the concept of retiring is too abstract for me. And we're going to get into the future self, and we're going to talk about how delayed gratification, deferred consumption, which is on the same lines of that pay now, consume later that the authors are talking about, can help us actually save already for our retirement. Okay, so jumping right in. Benefits of delayed gratification. So first we need to understand that our brains are wired to find pleasure in imagining positive future events. And sure, cultivating this skill is linked to better mental health. But on the flip side, dwelling on uncertainty can intensify both those positive and negative emotions, making a desired experience even more enjoyable when it's finally realized. So let me take your brain right now to retirement. So we like to imagine that positive future event of retirement. And a lot of us have that opportunity to, for a second time, at least for DoD civilians, to take the deferred resignation program offer, which is basically a very, I guess, nice severance package if you wanted to leave the government early. And now they're offering the voluntary early retirement authority. So folks are thinking about that. They're drooling over it, right? And this is what the authors want us to do, that drool factor, to get us excited about something that causes us to take a level of action that is needed. So by doing that, we do improve our overall subjective well-being. It enhances our mental health. But dwelling on that uncertainty and creating those positive and negative emotions surrounding retirement, it will make retirement even more enjoyable when it is finally realized, wow, the time that I took to finally pay that professional, the time that I took to finally organize my finances and get that done, that is one of those benefits, right? And so delayed gratification, whether it's savoring the wait or saving, right? We save ourselves for so many things in life, and I'm sure your imagination can run wild with that. But when we're savoring the wait for a special purchase or a special occasion or retirement and embracing the mystery of a surprise, we can amplify our overall happiness by tapping into that power of anticipation. So some folks that I talk to, they'll come in and they'll say, oh, I just get so depressed thinking about how many years left I have to work. Well, maybe you're not in the right line of work then. Maybe I need to refer you to a different professional for that area, because we certainly don't want you spending another 20 years miserable just while paying down for your retirement for those last 20 years, right? We want you to find some level of happiness in that. So here's a quote from the Happy Money book. Anticipating good things produces a distinct pattern of neural activation in the nucleus accumbens, a region of the brain linked to the experience of pleasure and reward. We talked about that last episode. Continuing with the quote, and training ourselves to envision a fantastic future has real benefits, end quote. So what the authors are saying, if we can train our brains to start looking at retirement and envision retirement as a long-lasting reward that increases our pleasure and reward center of our brain and even the neurochemical dopamine that goes with it, boy, that can assist us in saving more for retirement. They have a little section in the book, Making the Mojito Taste Free, and they offer a story about folks that prepaid for a destination wedding. And so they pay up front, they go see their friends get married. And by the way, if you ever do that, there's a famous comedian that says, the gift is you being there. Because you've paid your way and you've gone, right? Their gift is you being there. And don't feel guilty if that's what you do. So anyway, you've already paid for this destination wedding. They give this example in the book. And so isn't it great that when you're sitting there and you're enjoying the time with friends and family, and all of a sudden the bartender asks what you'd like to drink, and you remember, oh, I've already paid for this, and I can consume however many mojitos I desire because I've already paid for this. It's a wonderful feeling, and we want that same effect for your retirement. So like we want that mojito to taste free, we want that retirement in the end to also taste free. But we also want to increase that drool factor to also increase, and listen, I'm stumbling on my words because my brain's trying to get ready to say the French word, se réjouir. We want to increase that joy of anticipation with our retirement as well. So when it comes to the benefits of delayed gratification, the biggest bang is when it provides opportunities for detail hunting to promote positive expectation. And one of those is hunting those details with your spouse. What do we want to do in retirement? Can we also start doing those things now so that it doesn't feel like we have 20 years to go before we can do it? We can increase our drool factor by even experiencing just a small taste of it every once in a while, whether it's through a vacation, whether it's through different things that you've wanted to do when you retire, maybe taking that Spanish class for a semester and getting a taste of what that's going to be like. We've already talked about se réjouir, we've already talked about the drool factor, and we've also talked about engendering that sense of pleasure beyond the experience itself, that transcendent strawberry. So that helps us with delayed gratification. Delayed gratification in and of itself, delaying the time between when we get paid and when we spend the money, has great benefit. That's what these authors are saying. So I will also touch on when we're not practicing delayed gratification, and that's when we're spending even before we have the money, i.e., through the buy now, pay later apps, or through a credit card, or whatever way or method you have in paying for that before you actually have the cash. Research shows a strong link between debt and unhappiness. And I can be the first one to vouch for that. There's a difference between theory and practice. And sure, the Happy Money book is not just based on theory, because they put some of the theories to the test with their own research, but a lot of it is theoretical. But this gives you the opportunity to experience through your own experiments with your money, how is it going to work with you? What do you need to tweak? But I will tell you, when it comes to practice, when it comes to the real world, and when it comes to me sitting with people who have debt, I can be the first one to say that that is a true statement. We're talking stress, we're talking anxiety, we're talking potential for losing a security clearance, i.e. losing your job, i.e. losing your identity. So this is something that does not need to be glossed over. Here's another point. Debit cards, which require immediate payment, is associated with significantly less unsecured debt by 400%. Even after filtering variables of income and credit history. I like this little research project that they pointed to in this book. So for those that use debit cards where the money is currently available, where the delayed gratification already occurred, where they allowed that account to build up enough cash to now spend, they are actually spending less on unsecured debt by 400%. I think that's just an amazing thing. Pay with your debit card. Now, be careful. If you're not in the habit of that and you're not tracking your money correctly, like those softballs, you're not watching where it goes, because money is scarce, just like that softball story that I gave you. If you're not tracking that money closely, then you're going to have some fees, and we don't want you to rack up those fees. We want you to use your debit card responsibly. So in a nutshell, they're just saying the convenience of credit comes at a cost. When you're not delaying gratification, it comes at a cost. By obscuring the immediacy of payment, it encourages overspending and undermines our financial well-being. So, I had a picture of a man fishing with his grandson, and I used that as a visual for what the Happy Money book talks about with the joy of anticipation. The anticipation of an experience or a purchase that often brings more joy than the experience itself. And I know that there have been plenty of folks, I'm sure, even in the audience, who have just anticipated being with a loved one or anticipated a purchase, and finally it comes, and wow, this is nice. But here's what the authors say about the joy, what joy can do. And several psychologists have backed this up in other research papers and in journals of psychology, journals of epidemiology. They talk about suicide rates, and a lot of times what the ingredients that are missing in someone who has completed suicide is hope, connection, joy, right? So the joy of anticipation, here's what they say about it in their book, and I quote, "The ability to generate pleasant thoughts about the future is a hallmark of psychological health. What separates the suicidal from the rest of us is not an abundance of negative thoughts about the future, but rather an absence of positive ones," end quote. So building that hope, building that connection, it creates those positive expectations and that joy of anticipation that fuels a desire to get out of bed every morning and to look forward to something. We talked about in the financial symposium, again, about this making retirement taste-free. The authors talked about a Hershey Kiss experiment with college students. And so I did the same thing. I don't have all the variables within the research design. I didn't look all that up, and I didn't fully recreate it. Wouldn't be able to do that with a symposium. But I at least did a half-cocked version of the Hershey experiment. And so what I did is before the break, which would be exactly 30 minutes, before I would provide this level of information to them, I simply let them know, grab your Hershey your Hershey Kiss. Right before you leave for the break, you have the option of eating it now or saving it for a discussion in a little while. I did not give the time frame. I just said in a little while. So they had no idea that it was 30 minutes. They didn't know it was only 30 minutes. Some of them may have eaten it right then because maybe they thought it was a 4-hour class. So maybe some of them thought, I may not get this for 2 hours. It's going to melt in my pocket or for whatever reason. So anyway, what we did is when it came time to talk about this experiment, I asked how many folks had already eaten it. And we probably had about 5 people that raised their hands. And I asked them, to share some of the reasons why they ate it. And one simply said, well, I just wanted it. It's a Hershey Kiss. And it wasn't quite lunchtime yet, even though we had plenty of snacks available out in the foyer, they still chose to eat it. And then I asked the audience how many folks decided to wait. And of course, most of their hands went up. And I asked one of them to share why she didn't need it. And, there were several examples given as to why it wasn't eaten. But I think one of them was curiosity. Just want to see what was going to happen with this, right? I went into talking about how we could make our retirement taste-free. And I read the following on page 16 in Happy Money. Here's the quote in the book, page 16. "This idea is not lost, to sell tickets for its upcoming space flights, Virgin Galactic filled a beautiful brochure with striking photos of the Earth from space and futuristic images of suborbital travel. In contrast, the cover is a simple gray, splashed with the words of Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. This marketing strategy is clever. If you want people to put down a $20,000 deposit for something that doesn't exist yet, you better convince them that they won't regret it. But it also turns out to be true. Looking back on their past decisions about whether to purchase experiences, 83% of people sided with Mark Twain, reporting that their biggest single regret was one of inaction, of passing up the chance to buy an experience when the opportunity came along. The opposite was true for material goods. Most people's biggest regret was buying something that they wish they hadn't." Let me read a part of this again. If you want people to put down a $20,000 deposit for something that doesn't exist yet, you better convince them that they won't regret it. Can we not view retirement as an experience? And how do I get audience members to get excited about something that doesn't exist yet? How do I get you to put a $20,000 deposit down on your retirement by saving throughout the year, by putting money away in your 401k every month, by maximizing your contributions, or even at least getting to 100% match, right? How do I bring that across? So I did that through this experiment. For those that did not eat their Hershey Kiss, I asked them to explain to me what happened in their mind when they finally got to eat it. And one of the folks said they enjoyed it more. Let me repeat that. That person said that they enjoyed it more. And they wanted to go out and now get more Hershey Kisses. And that's exactly what happened in the experiment with the folks that are mentioned in the Happy Money book, the college students. They were actually going to go out and buy more Hershey Kisses because they just didn't consume it quickly. They waited, and because of that drool factor, the joy of anticipation, and by the time they got to eat it, it was more satisfying than had they just consumed it as soon as it was handed to them. And that's the same thing with retirement. Retirement does not come free. Retirement requires sacrifice. Retirement requires kind of like a layaway plan. I've been referring to retirement as a layaway plan for a long time. But what keeps us from saving towards retirement, as the authors state, is the power of now. We overvalue the present moment. We're making it hard to resist immediate pleasure and appreciate the potential of delayed gratification. We discount the future. We tend to care less about future selves than our present selves, leading us to undervalue future benefits. And if you want to hear 2 great episodes on connecting with your future self, go back to season 2 and listen to episodes 5 and 6. And it will even give you exercises to reconnect with your future self. And the pain of paying. The act of paying now creates an immediate psychological cost that we're wired to avoid, pushing us towards instant gratification, even if it means sacrificing future enjoyment. So what I did here is, even though the authors, they talk about paying now, consuming later as a spending practice, I turned it into a saving practice and just called it deferred consumption, because that is exactly what retirement is. If we can increase the drool factor, the se réjouir, and decrease the pain of paying, and not get caught up in the power of now, and to actually connect with our future selves, then we get rid of that disconnect. And now we can start making choices that will benefit our future selves. Here's a quote out of the book. People view the distant future abstractly, just like, and just to interrupt the quote, just like this respondent on the survey said, one of his barriers was that the concept of retiring was just too abstract for him. So again, back to the quote. People view the distant future abstractly, prompting them to think about how desirable a particular course of action would be. They tend to focus more on feasibility when contemplating the immediate future. So a lot of folks, when they think about feasibility, they're also thinking, do I have the means to do this? Is it feasible to put this much in savings? But if we were, and I love how an author put it before, if we took a 20% pay cut, we would find a way to live and to survive. And it's the same with savings. We can find a way to put that 20%, 10% in our daily savings, and then the 10% into our retirement savings, right? So there are so many things that we can do short-term and long-term with our savings and investing. So I'll wrap up this episode. We didn't get into the happy money subject of giving, but it is a good read. And what I like what the author talks about is how we can learn how to audit our giving, give intentionally, and give with a purpose. I would encourage you, If you have found this information helpful, to please rate and review the pod on whatever platform you listen on. We greatly appreciate your time and attention, and I wish you happy